The poor are lazy. Once upon a time, in a magnificent African kingdom, a controversial belief stirred within the heart of the king, King Malachi. Firmly convinced that poverty was a matter of choice, he devised a daring plan to prove his theory. Without a single coin to his name, he wagered that he would become a wealthy man by year's end, showing the kingdom that hard work could change one's fate. As the king shared his audacious plan with his skeptical advisors, their voices rose in unison, cautioning him against this perilous undertaking. They feared for his safety and the stability of the kingdom. However, King Malachi, his determination unwavering, brushed aside their concerns. The king conferred the power of rulership upon his capable and wise queen. Now free from royal responsibility, King Malachi set foot outside the palace walls, leaving behind the lavish lifestyle that had sheltered him for so long. The plan appeared deceptively simple as King Malachi set out on his quest. His intention was clear: to find a job and secure a place to stay. However, he soon confronted a harsh reality that shattered his overestimated abilities. As a ruler well-versed in politics and strategy, he possessed no practical skills that the kingdom desperately required, no mastery of carpentry, baking, or any other trade. Undeterred, the determined king approached one potential employer after another, seeking a hard day's work. But instead of open doors, he encountered ridicule and scorn. Laughter echoed in his ears as his unskilled hands failed to impress. The day unfolded as a bitter disappointment, a stark contrast to the grand vision he had harbored. At day's end, the king found himself penniless, devoid of wages that could secure a roof over his head. Like countless others in the kingdom, he became one among the many homeless souls seeking solace on the unforgiving streets. The sheer magnitude of the homelessness crisis struck him with profound shock, a revelation that pierced his heart. In the darkness of that tumultuous night, the king, stripped of his regal privileges, drifted into a restless sleep, haunted by the trials and tribulations that awaited him. The world of the streets, once foreign and distant, had become his stark reality, a place where survival tested his resolve and unveiled the hidden truths that lay beneath the surface. The next morning, before the break of dawn, a procession of potential employers descended upon the gathering of homeless individuals. They scanned the crowd, carefully selecting laborers for the day's work on the farms. Malachi stood among them, eager to seize the opportunity that awaited. As the employers sorted out the workers, Malachi struck up a conversation with the young men standing beside him. They exchanged introductions and shared their hopes for the day. Malik shared the news. They were being taken to the king's farms to pick grapes. The labor was demanding, from sunrise to sunset, for a meager payment of a nickel. Malachi pondered the irony of the situation, as his daydreams of flourishing vineyards and rich wines gave way to the reality of a meager wage that would barely afford him a loaf of bread. Their conversation was cut short by an employer. Malachi disclosed his name and lack of grape-picking experience, only to be met with a reduction in promised payment to half a nickel. He attempted to argue for fairness, but the employer's decision remained firm. Many others were willing to take his place, and Malachi's pleas fell on deaf ears. As they walked through the back gates of the palace, leaving the streets behind, the grandeur of the palace loomed before them. The sight struck Malachi with a profound sense of humility, realizing the stark contrast between the opulence within those walls and the struggles he had encountered on the streets. Thoughts of quitting crossed his mind, but his pride and determination held him firm. He now had a job, a small flicker of hope amidst the hardships he faced. Beside him, Malik chattered animatedly, sharing stories of his past and claiming a personal connection with the king. Lost in his own daydreams and contemplation, Malachi listened absent-mindedly, the weight of his new reality pressing upon him as they made their way toward the vineyard. The vineyard stretched before Malachi, its lush green vines heavy with the vibrant clusters of ruby Roman grapes. These grapes, known for their exquisite fragrance, sweetness, juiciness, and limited supply, held a special place in his heart. They were his pride and joy. A smile crept to the corner of his mouth. Under the scorching sun, the laborers toiled, their hands moving swiftly as they plucked the ripe grapes from the vines. Malachi, though slower than the others, kept up with determination and perseverance. The physical demands of the work were evident, but he pushed through, fueled by the knowledge that he was earning an honest living. As the day wore on, the laborers were provided with a modest reprieve. The palace distributed a slice of bread and water to sustain them. Malachi suppressed the urge to seek out the head chef, who surely had an abundance of leftover food from the palace's grand dinners. But, He understood that he could no longer rely on his privilege, for it was through genuine labor and shared experiences that he would gain the understanding he sought. The day's labor finally came to an end, and Malachi held his half a nickel in his palm, a testament to his hard work. Tears of joy welled up in his eyes. This was the first money he had earned through sheer effort and determination. As the evening descended, he found himself once again settling down on the street, his earnings insufficient to afford a meal, let alone a place to stay. With the stars shimmering overhead, Malachi closed his eyes, signifying the end of day 2. Weeks passed, and Malachi found himself trapped in a relentless cycle. Despite his unwavering dedication and hard work, a roof over his head remained an elusive dream. The harsh reality of his kingdom's social inequities became increasingly apparent, leaving him desperate to find a way to break free from the cycle of poverty. His appearance had transformed, mirroring that of the homeless residents he had come to know. The grime and weariness etched on his face reflected the struggles he now shared with them. Malachi had delved deep into conversations with these forgotten souls, understanding their stories of hardship and despair. Among the homeless were war veterans, once brave soldiers now discarded by a society that had forgotten their sacrifices. Their bodies bore the physical scars of battles fought for the kingdom. Malachi's heart ached as he witnessed the consequences of the war he had pledged his men to support. The true human cost, beyond the mere statistics on paper, revealed itself to him in the weary eyes of these veterans. Children, born to soldiers who had never returned, roamed the streets in search of warmth and sustenance. Their innocent faces masked the harsh realities they faced daily. Malachi was confronted with the bitter truth of broken families, shattered hopes, and the deep wounds that war had inflicted upon his people. The plight of the young girls was especially distressing. Barely old enough to comprehend the world's cruelties, they were forced to sell their bodies, their meager earnings a desperate means of survival. Their dreams and innocence shattered, they moved through the shadows, their existence a tragic consequence of a society that had failed to protect them. Others sought solace in mind-numbing drugs, a temporary escape from the harsh reality that surrounded them. Malachi witnessed the hazy fog that engulfed their minds, erasing the pain, if only for a fleeting moment. The stench of raw sewage permeated the streets, a stark contrast to the perfumed air he had once breathed while passing through the kingdom in his golden carriage. The sight of his subjects throwing flowers at his feet now seemed like a distant memory, as most of his people seemed to be trapped in a cycle of poverty and despair. Malachi's heart weighed heavy with sorrow and remorse. The stark reality he faced shattered the illusion of prosperity he had once embraced. It was a humbling awakening, revealing the immense responsibility he held as a leader. After 6 long months of struggle, Malachi's pursuit of higher-paying jobs using his knowledge and passion for wine had proven futile. Despite his well-read nature, his disheveled appearance and lack of cleanliness posed insurmountable barriers. Doors were shut in his face before he even had a chance to state his intentions. The weight of his situation bore heavily upon him, overshadowing his once hopeful spirit. One night, as the day drew to a close, Malachi found himself lying next to Malik. Malik, lost in a haze induced by drugs, had rarely spoken about his past, except for his consistent claim of knowing the king. It had become a running joke among their fellow street dwellers, dubbing him the King's Man. But on this particular night, Malik's words took on a different tone. "You know, when my father was alive, my mother, my siblings and I had everything we needed," Malik murmured, his voice tinged with sadness. "But when he passed, my mother fell ill and soon after, we found ourselves homeless. At my father's funeral, the king promised to take care of me and my siblings, but those were just empty words." Malachi's curiosity was piqued, and he couldn't help but probe further. "The king was at your father's funeral?" he asked, half-jokingly. "He must have been a very important man, your father." A deep sigh escaped Malik's lips, mingling with the night air. "Indeed, he was," Malik replied, his voice filled with sorrow. "My father was Akin, the royal commander of the king's army." Malachi's heart skipped a beat as he stared at the young man before him. The pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place, and an overwhelming realization washed over him. Little Malik, the self-proclaimed acquaintance of the king, was the son of Akin, the man to whom Malachi had made promises long ago. Guilt and remorse flooded his soul, and for the first time in his life, he wept. Gathering himself, Malachi shook Malik gently, desperately trying to rouse him from his drug-induced slumber. "Malik, wake up, please," he pleaded. But Malik remained lost in his altered reality, oblivious to the profound moment unfolding before him. With a heavy heart, Malachi stood up and surveyed his surroundings. He realized he had dragged this self-imposed wager for far too long, ignoring the responsibilities that had long been neglected. With a newfound determination, Malachi strode towards the palace gates, demanding to see the queen. The guards, amused by the audacity of a seemingly insignificant man seeking an audience with royalty, erupted in laughter. Yet, when the queen caught sight of Malachi, tears streamed down her face, a mixture of joy and relief at her husband's return. The months that followed were a whirlwind of transformation. Malachi wasted no time in implementing policies to address the needs of the veterans, the children, the drug-addicted, and the forgotten. His kingly duties took on a new meaning as he tirelessly worked to fulfill the promises made long ago. And there, amidst the chaos of reform and restoration, Malachi's eyes met Malik's once again. Malik, with a triumphant smile, proclaimed, "See, I told you, I know the king." A roar of laughter erupted at this inside joke, turned reality. The two men embraced, their tears mingling, as they found solace in the shared journey that had brought them together. In that moment, Malachi knew that his redemption lay not just in reclaiming his throne, but in bringing about lasting change for those who had been cast aside. Thank you for watching our story, The Poor Are Lazy, and we hope you enjoyed it. What lessons did you draw from this story? Share your thoughts with us in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe and be part of the tribe. Thank you for watching The Tales of the Savannah. We will see you next time, in the Savannah.